Arif, I'd love a 30 seconds intro to who you are and what you're doing, if that's okay.
Yeah, and I think probably the most interesting way of putting it is that, my background is this kind of two main aspects. One is the AI machine learning. So my degree was in computer science about nearly 20 years ago now, computer science with machine learning and AI as a specialism. And then I worked at a few AI startups. But what I found was there's this period called the AI winter, which was in the early 2000s, where we had the idea, but we just weren't able to realize it. So then I spent time working in banking, which is something I said I'd never do to myself. And I spent nearly about 12 years working directly in banking. And then AI became hot again. And I got back into the kind of the AI space through a consultancy. And I think although that wasn't a grand plan, but what that's kind of taught me was, first of all, the theory, then the reality of what people are actually doing in organizations like banks, for example, and insurance is very similar. And then kind of having seen that, I'm now come out the end of it, and I'm in a really fortunate position, I guess, to try and advise people. And the last thing I'll say is I used to look down on RPA. I thought it was a very basic technology. I thought it was test automation. I thought AI and machine learning, which I'd been sort of classically trained on, that was the really smart, intelligent things. And then I saw UiPath have hundreds of millions that thrown at it in investment. And I thought, actually, maybe I've missed a trick here. And what I've basically come to learn is sometimes just the basics. If you can automate, pulling data from a website, manipulating it and sending it via email, every day automatically, that actually adds a lot of business value to a lot of businesses. And it's like David said, it's then grown from there in terms of what its capability is, and it starts to get into the AI. So yeah, sorry, more than 30 seconds, but that's kind of a little summary.
As I said, we're not affiliated with, so UiPath, but keen to hear about them. A quick 30 seconds on UiPath's story as well.
It's been an incredible journey. It's the best way to describe it. I had no idea what I was letting myself in for. So when I joined UiPath, I was one of 1,000 people that had been hired in the space of 100 days, I think, at the end of 2018. So there was a huge ramp up. And to give you the history, I think it was even 6 years before that, there were about 10 people in the company operating out of an apartment in Bucharest. So they've had a really rapid kind of acceleration, and that has just continued. So in the time I've been at UiPath, we went from sort of robots and the studio for building the robots to now tools around discovering what process you want to build in the first place. And that was through a couple of acquisitions and something we built. Then the actual, building out and adding AI to the product, but then also analytics off the back of it. Once you've built your bots, what's the benefit you're getting? And also a tool wrapping that all together in terms of a single place where people can submit ideas as well. So I've seen that, so for my day job, for example, I went from explaining 3 products to people to 18 products. So it's been a real challenge. And David was saying about how quickly RPA moves and you have to continually upskill. I've got the same challenge. I'm coming in after a few weeks off after Easter. I've got training sessions about our latest release. So it's equally challenging for me to sort of keep up with UiPath's expansion. But yeah, it's been quite a journey over that time.
Fantastic. And we'll talk a bit more about how people get into the industry. But is there this kind of linear graph of kind of basic workflows and process automation through to robotic process automation and up to, more artificial intelligence? Does it work like that? Or is that a bit of a myth, really? And is it more cyclical, perhaps?
Yeah, I think what I find is people get where I think a graph or a linear line does come in is when you're talking about different types or levels of AI. I found people get really hung up on trying to define artificial intelligence. They get really hung up on going, well, is robotics artificial intelligence or not? And AI is by design a really loose definition. And anything, even if you've got a system that asks someone 5 or 6 questions and it makes a recommendation at the end of it, that is an example of some artificial intelligence. I see it as a spectrum. You have very basic examples of AI. Then you have more advanced examples that are learning and that are more intelligent. Now, I've seen some customers do the journey you described, Richard, where they start off with the basics and they add others on, but I've equally seen others start off with, for example, which was touched on, I think, by Debbie, document processing. So that is one example area where traditionally you've needed templates, it's been very kind of static, where actually machine learning can actually help accelerate that area. So some people will start with documents first. That's an example of type of machine learning being applied. So you can do it the other way around. So it doesn't have to be linear in terms of how you apply it.
Thank you. Yeah, just by all means, keep your cameras on. If you've got a bit of background noise, just do us a little favor there and keep the microphones muted if that's the case, so we can hear Arif clearly. Okay, so we talked about getting into the industry then. It's a good chance to ask that question since you were talking about that, the different sort of shades and flavors of this. Are people getting in just going through the UiPath Academy and through their courses, or are people transitioning from perhaps working in Python or other languages? Who's knocking on your door in terms of?
Yeah, like kind of everyone, because what we're seeing a demand for in the industry is a range of skills. So existing business analysts, even operational users in a company. So let's take a large insurance company. You're working there. You see this automation coming as a theme and you want to get involved. Well, now there's this whole area of citizen development in the industry. So actually, if you've got operational knowledge and you go on, maybe some internal courses, maybe it's UiPath, maybe it's other courses to try and upskill yourself on what automation is, that is really valuable experience for COE. And there are paths. So internally within a company, you could get more involved in their own automation program if there is one, for example. Externally, you could look at either joining, one extreme, let's say joining UiPath. There are obviously roles there. We have our own professional services team. That's one angle, but you don't have to do that to get exposure to projects around UiPath. You could join one of the big consultancies like a PwC or an Accenture or, Infosys and Deloitte. Other vendors will all have now their own automation practice within these companies. So, and then there's also some niche vendors, so other companies that specialize in just doing RPA type projects. So you will get, and there's more and more of those as well. So there are multiple ways of kind of doing it. The good news is, and what I've seen is really accelerate things, is UiPath's always offered our training for free. So you can literally sign up for the academy, go through a course that will introduce the basics and then go as deep as you want. Do you want to look at how citizen developers work, which is less technical? You can do the more advanced training, and other places online as well, are offering free training as well on these things.
Thank you. We'll dig a bit more into that in a second. I used to work for a company with 150,000 people, and now I'm out on my own. We're building the team up with 5 others now alongside me. Is this accessible for SMEs yet? Where does this start being?
So what has really helped, and I've seen this. So a friend of mine's an accountant, and he saw something that I posted on LinkedIn. He runs his own business, an SME, and he kind of got in touch with me going, oh, okay, can you show me how this works? And so he's just downloaded the community edition of UiPath, and the terms to that I think are quite generous in terms of, I think it's as long as you've got less than 25 people and your revenue is less than X million pounds, you can use the community edition to build your bots. You can build them and run them and deploy them. So that's been a really popular way for people kind of dipping their toe into this stuff and actually using it properly as well, because the number of bots you can get as part of that community license has increased now as well. So that's a really good angle, and I've seen people start doing it that way, and that is a good place to start.
So this is for accountancy practices with tens of people, or can a podcast host like myself use this to update things and change things?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Amazing. Niraj, you've got a question, I believe. Do you want to put your mic on?
No, I was just want to check, Arif, which is the biggest challenge you face while pitching for automation? I'm supposing you have to pitch and not the other way around.
Yeah, I think it's some of these are almost not cliches, but they're things that you would often say with any technology. Or often the problem I've seen, I've been in technology all my career, that often the problem is you start with a solution rather than with a business problem. And in fact, just one example, we had a call the other day with a customer where we thought we knew what the solution was, but just before, and we'd had prep meetings as you do, but just before we went in and pitched the solution with the customer, we just said, to start with, can we just confirm the real business problem you're trying to solve? And the line he said stuck with me. He goes, thanks for saying that, because usually vendors are really quick to just show me their latest shiny tool and how they can solve this thing. So I think number one, always kind of stick to what is the real business problem you're trying to solve, and just look at automation as one of the tools you have available to kind of solve that. And in terms of challenge, I've seen it often done the other way around. You're the automation person. What are you going to solve for me? What do you have? Now, because it's a new technology, sometimes you do need to go in with that. You do need to go in initially and go, here's a technology and this is what it can do, just to get the ideas thinking and going with them. So there is that education piece, but I think the quicker you can get to a business case, that avoids a lot of the problems. some of the other challenges, you'll probably hear this is, are the bots going to take over our jobs? And even if, the management and people don't seriously think that, they need to make sure their employees don't think that, any of them think that this is about, either headcount reduction or replacing people with jobs, replacing people with robots. And, I used to think that was just what you read in the media, but people will have that concern because they haven't been, enlightened about what these things are, kind of thing, really. So that's some of the challenges I would say that I've kind of had.
Just follow on. Do you think people have too many, expectations at times, unrealistic from this, especially who are lesser educated on the concept as such?
Yeah, you have these hype cycles, don't you? So I remember seeing once, actually it's before I joined UiPath, I remember someone in a bank and he'd just come back from a demo and he was like, oh, is that it? I was expecting there to be a robot there. What do you mean? So I think there is just as soon as you use the terms artificial intelligence and robots, people do picture science fiction. It's just a fact. So you're right. Sometimes the expectations can be too high, or maybe sometimes people start off with the most difficult things where sometimes it makes sense to start with some of the easier quick wins. So those are, some of my thoughts.
Arif, on that, very good point. Could not one argue that who's responsible for that is indeed the automation vendors, right? Because guys, I'm generalizing wildly, right? Because there's many automation vendors, not just UiPath, although UiPath is up there. Because you guys call what's actually possibly just machine learning or some other cognitive automation, you call it AI.
Yeah,
and you take it as this big solution to your digital transformation. So quite apart from a market employee, which if I were in your industry, I probably would do the same. We know that this is not artificial AI, certainly not in the sense of the strong AI, right?
Yeah.
Why call it that?
No, I agree. And I think if you look at UiPath's marketing and branding, like we've avoided using the term robots now and talking about it in those terms. The terms are very much around the fully automated enterprise, automation, exactly for those reasons. I think this was a term that was inherited, this sort of robotic automation. It makes sense. I understand why they came up with it.
Forgive me. I take the robotic automation, right?
Yeah.
RPA, I'm cool with. It's when the vendors start generic, they start talking about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I profoundly disagree because it ain't.
Yeah, but I would say it is. So with more of the, so let me clarify. Yeah. Within the product, you've got elements of computer vision. When you're looking at handwriting analysis, that gets into elements of machine learning, voice, etc. And now the platform also allows you to bring your own machine learning models and integrate the bots with that. So it's moving more and more to that kind of AI, true AI, if you like, and the bots being smarter. So it's kind of like, it's an evolving thing. And it's, but I think I agree with you. I think from a marketing perspective, and I've seen us do this now, actually, you'll see it's more around UiPath accelerating your digital transformation. It's more those kind of languaging rather than, bots. And
we could talk forever because I love stuff, right? But I think artificial intelligence in the sense of strong AI, meaning a machine that can think like a human, make a decision like a human, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree. I normally have a slide which kind of presents that I can picture in my mind. Actually, I should have brought it along, but it has exactly that, where when you're going proper, true AI, whatever we want to call it, something that passes the Turing test, you're talking about things that might not, they're way out there. They're Google's DeepMind, they're experimental.
Right, which is not to trivialize what even RPA does. I mean, I think it's fantastic stuff. Yeah. When you start coupling it with cognitive automation, with the machine learning, computer processes, NLP, I mean, it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Good points, really good points.
Wonderful points. Thank you. Just a couple more questions before we move into the next part of the evening. This is quite a fun one from Shona. She sent me privately. Should I've just got no background in coding experience, will it be a challenge for me to learn RPA?
So 12 months ago, it honestly would have been, even though our marketing might have said differently, but it would. But now, Studio X, and I think you'll see that later today.
I think so, yeah.
It is really, like I can stand behind it and say you can do this without any coding experience. There's automations that can be built without you even touching the keyboard, because you're able to drag, drop, and configure. So it really is now a lot easier, and you don't need any coding experience for it. Yes, definitely.
Great answer. Abdul says there's 166 courses. Now, David's already commented on this, but he says, where do I start? And I guess that depends on where he wants to get to, does it?
So, although, yes, if you look at the course list, it can look a bit intimidating, but there are syllabus, there's persona-based training. So there are, on the website, you'll be able to find sections that will go, as a developer, do these, as a BA, do these, as a solution architect, do these. So there are ways to navigate you through those courses.
Very good, very good. Hamid says, isn't ML a subset of AI? Well, kind of.
Yeah, it kind of enables it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then the smart rule-based programs, shouldn't that be included in AI, he says?
Yeah, it should. Even basic rule-based. I did a module at university called Expert Systems. The expert system tries to replicate human reasoning by just question, and then answer. It's not learning, but it's still AI in the true sense. Yeah.
Wonderful. Dean's here. Always nice to see Dean. He's always happy to speak up, so I won't ask it on your behalf, Dean, if you want to ask your question.
I'd like to know your view on machine learning, using tiny machine learning.
I actually have to admit, I don't know what tiny machine learning is.
It's very slow, very small, low power computing, mainly IoT type thing.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. Yeah, no, I'll have to pass on that one and make sure I'd read up on this term, actually, because that is
good question, Dean. Shona, sorry, Dean, I talked over you. What did you say?
I said, thanks for your honesty.
Dean, what are your thoughts on them? You've got a view.
On tiny, well, I'm taking my third course on tiny machine learning right now. I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. I started just to learn machine learning, but the third course actually implements it on a very, very small, low power computer. So I'm trying to get other people's perspective on it. Not that we
Interesting.
Fantastic.
I know there's a climate change issue potentially in terms of the power usage on the bigger machine learning, the GPUs and things like that. They're very CPU intensive. That is a challenge. So I'll definitely look into this one.
Right.
Arif, you answer questions really quickly. We're getting through so many. Sometimes my guests take about 9 minutes to answer a question.
The quick fire thing works.
I love it. Well. It's great. So Abdul comes back and says, does a uni degree matter anymore?
I'm actually mentoring some younger students at the moment, and they're asking this question as well: degree versus apprenticeship, whatever. So if you already don't have a degree, but you're in industry, if that's your context, then don't worry about that. Just get into automation. You don't need a degree to be able to do this. If you're thinking about for a career in this area, does a degree help or not? I personally feel degrees do help because you're often competing with people who have them, but you don't. Like my dad used to say to me, Richard Branson never had a degree. So there you go.
Good point. Shona, do you want to ask your question? I see your camera's on. No, no, that's okay. I've lost your question now. Where did it go? Oh yeah, will there be courses for QA, as in quality assurance? Or?
That's a really great point. So UiPath, about 2 years ago now, made a really kind of big investment or bet, if you like, on the test automation area, which might not be exactly your question, but I'm going to kind of like link it in. So they basically worked out that testing is an area where this technology it kind of emerged from there, and it has a lot to say around that area as well. Often a bot will break because the systems around it have updated, nothing to do with the bot. So UiPath said, well, actually, we need all of the systems around these bots also, robust. So they've spent a lot of time on test automation. So if you look in our academy, there will be test related courses, which are more about our testing product, but they'll also talk about how you test, how to build bots or how bots should be tested as well.
Shona, you're on mute, I think, if you're responding to that. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, just I want to clarify with Arif, like it's only through UiPath there are courses to test the bots or to test the applications. Is it not with the other RPA tools like Blue Prism or Automate Anywhere?
There should be something around guidelines for how to test. Having said that, I'm thinking back when we did our original, before we had a testing product, I don't think we did much around testing either. We basically would teach you how to build the bots. We had a solution architect course. So there may be a gap actually around advice for testers.
Okay.
Interesting.
There is
Yeah.
actually a whole lot of testing information out there. There's like institutes around testing,
Right.
and there's a whole set of test theory, if you like, and test methodology that can be applied to RPA as much as can be applied to AI. So there is a lot of generic information out there in the public domain and available. A lot of it is freely available as well.
Thanks,
Okay,
David.
thanks.
Is that okay, Shanna?
Yeah, thanks.
Great. David, the courses have been mentioned a couple of times. I don't know if you could dig the link out for us, could you?
Yep, I can.
If it's to hand, if not, someone else. Arif, not the easiest question to answer, but I have heard on the grapevine that other RPA vendors do exist. And so are there many differences, or, you know, is...
Yeah, I won't get into that too much. I'll let the analysts, the
Sure,
analyst
yeah.
reports out there. I see the question that you're trying to tiptoe around about Blue Prism. That's fine. We are in the UK. Blue Prism, a UK company, so that's all good. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to kind of like speak ill of any other vendors, but yeah, I think different tools have their strengths. I think UiPath sees its strength is versus in relation to Blue Prism is probably the fact our attended offering, or we have an attended offering that's all managed on the same platform. So that's probably one of the key differences, the attended automation, which is the automation that runs on someone's desktop, more like a virtual assistant alongside them. That's probably the main one.
Great. Arif, we've hit 18:31, 1 minute over. I think you've answered a record number of questions in the time. Thank you so very much for coming to spend some time with us, for learning good about what you do and your company that you work for. Any final tips for people who are here and not working in RPA, but a couple of years' time now would love to have a job in the industry?
Yeah, just try it. I mean, if I think it was mentioned earlier, but if you look at what the World Economic Forum is saying, it's like, you know, these roles around automation, and not just software, but maybe robots, physical robots as well. But automation is a really big theme as the world recovers from the challenges we've had for the last few years, that we want a new normal. And, you know, World Economic Forum and others are talking about, you know, how are we going to do that in a sustainable way? So I genuinely think, even my job aside as a human, genuinely think that this is an area that will expand. And there's never been so much free training and free things available online than there is right now. So I'd just say, yeah, have a go at it. You can download, you know, free UiPath or other software. You can download it for free and try it out yourself. So I'd recommend you do that. Thanks for having me as well, Richard.
My absolute pleasure. Last final question. All that availability now, is that increasing diversity in the industry?
Of people diversity in terms of the workforce.
Yeah, gender and age and background and so on. Are we making progress?
I think there's still a lot of work to be done, even if I just look at my own organization, right? How many women do we have in the company? How many, like, you know, how diverse are we? It's something that it feels like there's big focus on it, but there's still a lot more to be done. I think automation, if you can democratize this, which people talk about, enabling everyone to get access to these tools, then you start to sort of upskill everyone, and it allows people to kind of, you know, enter different careers they may not have thought of before. So that will help, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
Okay, thank you for commenting on that. So Arif is there on LinkedIn. I just popped that in. So follow him, or Niraji. Oh, you're applauding. I thought you were raising your hand. So yeah, please do join me in thanking Arif for spending a bit of his evening with us. I'm sure he'd rather be having dinner. So thank you for that. So stick around for as long or as little as you want. You can go right now and get on with your evening. Hang around for a little bit longer. We're very, very happy. Just thank you so much for your time.
Thanks a lot. I do need to jet, but I would love to stay
great.
if I could. But yeah, speak to you guys soon.
We'll see you again, no doubt.
Good rest.
Thanks, Arif.
Right.
Thank you. And it's my great pleasure now to be introducing Harika. How are you?
Hey, hi everyone. I'm good. How are you, Richard, and everyone?
Really well. What time is it for you?
It's 11 o'clock, 11 p.m.
11 p.m. Now that's commitment. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. You're our workshop leader tonight. We're just a few minutes over the half hour, but we should be okay for time. Can I ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Actually, I am working as a RPA developer with UiPath. I have overall 5 years of experience into IT industry. So before coming into UiPath, I have done different roles into IT industry where I realized this is my piece of cake and I wanted to be as a developer. And apart from my professional experience, I work as a YouTube content creator and I also write blogs on Medium. And I have given a couple of presentations on UiPath because I'm really interested in teaching people of what I learn out of my experiences. So that's all pretty much about me. And today I'm here to, give a small introduction about what is RPA and how we, empower UiPath by using this automation and all these things, and just give a small demo from my side so that it can help. UiPath is basically like everyone can have a robot to do their work, to do their repetitive tasks. So I can show you how easily we can do few automations from our side. So that's the whole motto of this session for today.
Can't wait to dive into you. Right, an action for everybody, nice and quick. Harika is not just a UiPath developer, she is a YouTube superstar as well. And she has an amazing channel of videos. So there's the link to YouTube. All you need to do right now, click that, hit the subscribe button, as every video ever tells you to do, and then make sure you follow her. She's up to hundreds and hundreds now of subscribers, so you know it's great quality content, and that will keep you in touch with Harika as she adds more content in the future. Great, we'll come to some questions in a little bit if that's just okay. Do you want me to do this shared session now, Harika, on ideas and use cases? Are you ready for me to do that?
Yeah, sure. Yes, and also Richard, I have Sudhir with me today in the call. So during the session, when I'm showcasing the demo or any of the piece of information, so if you have any questions, you can just put it out. Anyone can put it out in the chat. Sudhir will be helpful in answering your questions.
That's fantastic and great to know. We're in good shape then tonight. So I'm going to share my screen now and we have a bit of fun now for just 2 or 3 minutes, so to make sure we're all on the same page, all got a clear understanding of the use of RPA. So you need to grab your second device or your different tab if you want and go to menti.com, menti.com. And then when you're there, you pop that code in, and then we can all have a shared space here for a minute just to explore a little bit about RPA in healthcare. And perhaps, Harika, you could do this as well so that you get the ball rolling for us in terms of our understanding, because it is used across many industries. So I've just put a few examples. We'll probably do 3 of these now. And what you need to do is go to menti.com, put that code in 4095176. You can do it on your mobile, on a browser, pretty much any device that's got a web browser. And let's just put 6 examples up here, maybe a couple more, couple less, so that just get the ball rolling. So what and how is RPA used in healthcare? Let's start with that one. It'll come up on the screen here for us all to see when you do it. So I'd love to hear from you. You should be able to put a couple of sentences or a word or whatever into menti.com. Harika, while we're getting this going, let's open this up as well to conversation. We can use our vocal cords as well as our typing fingers, I'm sure, as we do this. Do you want to start us off with an example of RPA in healthcare?
Yep. I think we can do it after the survey.
You want to do your survey first?
Yes.
Great, okay.
I just wanted to hear from people, like what their understanding is and what their views are on this particular thing.
Okay. Do you want me to stop the sharing for now?
We can pull in the survey. Yep.
Okay. So let's just come from here. Is that going to be on your screen?
No, that's fine. We can go ahead with yours, Richard.
Okay. Oh, that's absolutely fine. So let me reshare again then. My apologies. I thought you wanted to share your device. So, okay. So an example of RPA in healthcare. Who can start us off? David Martin, an example from you?
In terms of healthcare, I suppose it's sort of some back-end administration stuff, very much related to document management. So we've done some RPA implementations. They're very much processing documents coming through.
That's great. Any other examples for that? Any other examples for AI in healthcare? RPA in healthcare, excuse me. Okay, let's have a look at some other industries. What about RPA in finance? What example have we got of RPA in finance? We heard a bit about the banking industry earlier from Arif and how that got him interested in this. Raj, one you can think of?
Yeah, so in finance, automation, there are tons of things that can be done, like automation of your accounts payable, accounts receivable, reconciliation. There is, in fact, I think finance is one of the easiest or the most practical use cases to start RPA, in my opinion, and that's where the CFO, the Mr. or Miss Moneybags, they get to see the real value in incorporating this kind of technology. So I think there are many use cases in finance. People could start with automation of their accounts payable and receivable. That in itself is a huge
I agree with
saving or optimization that can be brought in.
I agree with Neeraj. Actually, finance is such a great field for automation. I mean, you can do so much just in the accounts, in the purchase to pay space, right? And then, but also not just that, but also in the general ledger reconciliation, cutting down month-end closing timings, and so on and so forth. So
great. Good. Thank you so much for these. I think they're very useful just as we go into more the technology side of it. Let's do maybe one or two more. So what examples of using RPA in HR? Who can think of an example, a use case, a process that you might use in HR?
I imagine you can do a lot of the onboarding of your staff with that kind of solution, because there's a lot of repetitive action, high volume action, repetitive, boring, necessarily no complexity. So
yes, yeah, really great example, Francesca. I remember one from a previous career, the onboarding and the checks, the background checks for employees.
Right.
And there was a wonderful use case actually with RPA and optical character recognition, or OCR, a technology that David actually knows very well. And I just thought it was so clever that it could automate the process, and it was using chatbots a lot of time to do that. But what was so clever is that it would immediately check what it's received. So if it said, like, we need to get your bank statement to be onboarded in this company, the OCR would analyze the bank statement and check the dates. And if it was out of date, it would immediately respond that second and say, I'm very sorry, this is an out-of-date bank statement, please send another. If you think about how long that would take people, all the pausing, you've got, Joan has to look at it, could be a day before she looks at it. So we've lost a day, and it's the wrong, okay, sends it back, 2 days to get the statement back again. So incredible time savings.
Yeah, and I mean, we are talking HR, but imagine the amount of fraud that one can do during those timings in, for example, in the insurance industry or in the financial
yes. Okay, we're popping with ideas. This is what we wanted. So I will bring us back to main screen.
If I may suggest one.
Yeah, please do.
I work at a pension fund, with a pension fund. And one of the most important things to know is when someone dies, and there's several different resources we go to find that out. And it just happens so very manually.
Right.
Don't mean to be morbid about that.
No, that's a great example, very real example, Dean. Yeah, there's very complex things when that happens because it's not always expected, often not. Thank you. Great. Yeah, keep joining the conversation. No need to keep quiet. We're all about an inclusive conversation here. Harika, I think probably enough of my voice for a while, I'm pretty sure. So do you want to take over the mic duties?
Sure, sure. So that was great poll from your side, Richard, so that I could able to understand the views of people. So this will definitely adds up to the conversation and helps me get going forward. So as today's session is basically about RPA introduction session, along with some demos around it. So I just wanted to go ahead and share my screen. Let me know if you can see the screen. Can you?
Coming up. Yeah, it's just loading.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, got it.
Okay. And as I said, if you have any questions during the session, you can feel free to mention it in the chat, and Sudhir will be helping out with the answers, and we can have the conversation at the end of the session as well. So basically, I just wanted to put out my agenda clear for today. So I'm going to concentrate on what basically UiPath is, and before to which I wanted to elaborate, for people who are not even having at least a minimum idea of RPA is also fine, because today's session is going to be starting from that point, like I can say from the scratch, wherein I will be explaining what RPA is and what different tools that we have, and why UiPath has taken a predominant importance over all such RPA tools, and how it's going to empower automation. And I will also give you some implementations that we have in multiple domains, and later on which we'll be jumping into the demo part, before to which I would explain the environment, which is UiPath Studio, just to give overview of how it actually looks and how you can develop a project and sequences that will help you to develop your own bots. So that's the agenda for today. I think it's clear for every one of you. So before going with anything else, I just wanted to mention, so basically RPA is something like robotic process automation, wherein we automate the tasks which are done repetitively, like any task that is rule based on a certain condition. If we can automate it, that particular task can be automated by using many RPA tools. So we all know, I think someone have put down their question in the chat previously, mentioning that there are many RPA tools like Automation Anywhere, UiPath, Blue Prism, but why UiPath only has why we are focusing so much on UiPath? So that's a question. So apart from these three tools, there are 50 plus automation RPA tools in the market. But if you ask me why only UiPath, I can say the time it takes for building a workflow, or to build a robot, and the exception handling that we use in order to make sure that wherever the exception, we know that whatever the automation that we build, or whatever the project that we develop, definitely there are chances that things may go wrong, but it's our smartness that how we can handle it. So the best exception handling, inbuilt exception handling that we have it. And also Arif was talking about the community editions that we have. Basically, anyone can build a robot. They don't have to invest money. They don't have to, to learn. At least they have the community edition with them, wherein they can just go and, download, just install it in their machine, and then get hands-on and, develop your own robots for at least for your daily tasks, to automate your daily repetitive tasks. So I think that's pretty cool, right? Like if we can get things for free by doing ourselves, and to enhance your knowledge, I think that's pretty cool. So that's where I see UiPath as, when I wanted to learn RPA, when I search for all other tools, UiPath is something that I can get handy, and I can enhance my knowledge through academy. So he also mentioned about the academic courses which are available. So you can just go and learn. You can do self-learn basically. So that's how it can be learn easily, and you can develop a robot easily by yourself. And now how it empowers automation. So basically, if you see, there are many automations that we can do, like if a particular manual task, let's say in previous generations, we doesn't have computers, everything has to be done manually. So during that time, when computers has pitched in, so all the manual task has been converted to a little bit of automation. So now, even though a part of the task can be automated, there are chances that when human get intervened into the things instead of a robot, there are chances that things may, the accuracy, with respect to accuracy, things may be not 100% accurate. And also, if we have to redo the work again, that means there's definitely a lot of time that we have to invest on that part. So during which obviously the time means business, then that would affect the business of the company, right? So by converting all this human task into automation, then definitely we can see a lot of change in the company that could get profited by. So that's how it can empower the automation. And let's talk about the implementations in multiple domains, because, sorry? Is there
Just
someone saying
some
something?
background noise, I think. Apologies.
Okay, no worries. I'm very much interested to talk about the implementation in multiple domains, because whatever we learn, end of the day, we wanted to see that being implemented in some or other domain. That's where our whole interest lies in, right? So let's talk about some of the implementation that we have in multiple domains. So basically, I would talk about bits of information in all the certain domains that I have collected over here. But if you are really interested, like me, if you wanted to go through all the articles and all the use cases that UiPath has implemented on multiple domains, I would share you the link for the blogs wherein you can read through all the articles, and that will definitely help you to gain your interest more on all these domains. So let's start with healthcare domain. So as everyone knows, during the corona times, like everyone has to close down the business because of a wide range of shutdowns and lockdowns that are happening. So because of which there's no especially healthcare, that's the only domain that's been open for helping people. So during that time, UiPath is one such tool which has came forward in order to create robots that would help people, even though if the person human is not available in that place. So let's take a small example wherein if I wanted to make an appointment to meet a doctor, so I have to go to the hospital, or I have to reach out by calling up the hospital, right, for checking out the availability of the doctor. So you can develop a robot where it can be of two different types, attended and unattended. So wherein if we go into the detailing, you can understand what is an attended and unattended robot types are. So basically here we are concentrating on a robot which is not a physical robot but a software robot, wherein it gathers the information based on the availability of the doctor, and it can help you to book an appointment without the human intervention. So that's wherein you can book the appointments easily just by a click away. And also it has also developed the robots by using which can help you to recheck with the patient if the health condition, who has reached out to the doctor, if the health condition of the patient is fine after a certain period of time. So we can develop the robots. I mean, there's a way that we can develop robots and schedule the robots in such a way that that robots can reach back you and check for your health condition if after reaching out the doctor how your condition is. So that's wherein the real importance of the robot, wherein a human cannot be available, this has come into picture. And I would love to share the articles also with you so that it would give you a very clear understanding of what it actually done when a human is not available. So during if I have to talk about finance and banks, so I would like to mention someone has picked up this examples, use cases with respect to finance and banks. So basically this is the place where we talk a lot about numbers. So there's a chance if human intervenes into this process, there's a lot of chances that for errors. So this is the place where we can best utilize the robots, because it's all about how we program it. A robot cannot do something beyond our programming, right? So if we can program it well, if we can develop a robot in such a way that to handle the exceptions that occur also in the finance and the banks, that can best utilize. Because basically if let's say if a numerical error happens, so as Richard also mentioned, it will take a lot of time to recall and to realize that the issue has happened. So by the time the business has lost almost so much of income or money that has invested on. So that's where if a robot can be placed in place of human, so that can be worked accurately, at least 90% accurate when compared to human. And also the time it takes, it's really commendable, because if a person has to do some task, a robot can do it with much more efficiency and much more accuracy. So that's wherein finance and the banks are the best places wherein the robot can be placed. And let's say about the HR. So we all know any organization, to start in with a employee, you have to reach out to HR. So that's where, the main HR plays a main role in an organization. So if any students are there in this call, they might know it very clearly. Like if you're doing for any job search or something, the first person you would contact to is an HR. And also any kind of issues that we face, or whatever the concerns that we have, we reach out to HR, right? So let me give you one small use case in this case. Like I believe most of the organization by this time are using the resume screening by using the robots, also just by training it and by learning it with different types of keywords and all this. And apart from that, I would tell you this, let's say if an employee gets onboarded into a company, so at that time he has to provide it with some information, let's say an offer letter. So it's just that we will, if there's a huge organization, then you will get the information of an employee in an Excel sheet, and all you have to do is to just send out the offer letters to the, let's say, 1,000 employees. Send out the offer letters just by getting the information from the Excel, and just to replace it in a particular template that we have. So, and also to send out the mail. So this whole process, to do it, at least we need 3 to 4 HRs, and they have to work throughout the day. But all the tasks can be done very accurately and efficiently by using a robot. So, and HR can really invest the time in doing something very creative, and to making sure that the employees are getting things done where a robot cannot actually really pitch in. So that's how this repetitive rule-based tasks, basically, that those can be automated by using the robots. So next, the other one is BPO, or customer service ticket generation. So before I talk about customer service ticket generation, I just wanted to mention about BPO sector, wherein basically, as far as I know, the BPO sector is a huge domain wherein a large set of applications has to be handled, wherein the information from one application and when compared with multiple other applications has to be, maybe we have to, sorry, is someone saying anything? Or is just a noise?
No, I think we're clear.
Okay. Okay. So we have to get the information from multiple applications, and then you have to, based on certain conditions, you have to update it. So it's just a straightforward domain wherein we can apply the automations and we can get the things done. And let's talk about the customer service ticket generation. So basically, customer service is any organization would work on profits and also customer service. These both are the key roles that a company has to concentrate on. So when it comes to customer service, let's say there's a huge organization wherein let's say the customer writes back to the company. If the customer is happy about the service, then that's fine. Then you don't have to really pitch in and put some extra effort in order to make customer more happy. But if there is a negative feedback that comes in from the customer, then that is the place where you have to pitch in and you have to show your action in a way to make customer happy about the service. So that's wherein you have to play a prominent role in order to keep up the goodwill of the company. So that's where a robot can do it by using the sentiment analysis. Let's say there are hundreds and hundreds of mails that are coming up into your mailbox every day, and if the employees are not operating 24/7. In that case, if we can make out the mails by using sentiment analysis, like we can trace out which is positive, negative, and neutral feedback. So based on that, you can segregate which is a negative and neutral feedback. These are the mails that you have to give high importance on. So that's where a robot can pitch in based on the information that you grab on. You can the robot can create a ticket where just you have to mention the customer that your issue has been heard, and our representative or the executive will reach out to you in order to best serve you. So that's where a robot can make a customer like heard, right? So that's wherein it's very important to make sure to maintain that customer satisfaction and also to maintain the goodwill of the company. So these are the few implementation that just I wanted to talk about a bit on, so that it will give you some high level idea about wherein actually these UiPath robots or RPA robots have been used in real world. So this and also, as I mentioned, I would like to share you the blog links so that that will give you more idea about the different other implementation apart from what is mentioned on the slide. And now we've talked a lot about the different implementations. So now from where we have to actually start, let's say if you are excited about all this implementation and now you wanted to start and wanted to create your own robot. So where is the actual route from where I have to actually start in? So we have an environment called UiPath Studio. So, let me share that screen.
Looks like we got a raised hand from Paul Levy. I don't know if Paul wants to say something.
Yeah, thank you. It was just actually, it felt like maybe the right question at this time in your really fascinating talk. And it is, I'm well aware, going back further into the world of automation, was that a lot of those companies didn't do well in the long run because what they'd done was they automated processes that they really should have been influencing in the first place. So essentially, they didn't automate bad practice. And I think one of the dangers, particularly in the area of helping, you mentioned the example of email, is you can get an email to use sentiment analysis, sorry, AI to use sentiment analysis, maybe to help us understand all that data. But you could also be asking whether we should be emailing at all these days. And there's a lot of evidence around office practice and getting work done and the electricity it takes to be on emails all the time. So at what point does a company simply help the company robotize its rubbish in terms of processes so that you influence that and say, we don't work with companies that do things this way? There's all kinds of issues around diversity that impacts on. So that you, as happened in the car industry in the 80s, you choose what customers you want to work with because you agree or disagree with the fundamental ways they're actually working.
Okay, I understand your question, Paul, but basically here the whole idea is like just to make sure that a ticket has been raised. So that's wherein maybe if an angry customer, we can just mention them that it's been heard. So later wherein the human can pitch in and actually see the issue, what it is actually, and he can put in his efforts in order to resolve the issue.
Yeah, I guess I'm even asking fundamentally, should be organizations having tickets at all, or be in the role of reacting to problems rather than processes of prevention? So I'm just saying the danger is if you accept the current models too fundamentally, you will end up developing reputations, even on your client lists, of being associated with companies that were mediocre in what they were doing. You can robotize mediocrity, or you can actually use robots to prevent problems and help redesign work as it learns.
So hi Paul, this is Sudhir. So I just want to add on to what Harika said. So
sure, Sudhir.
So it's just not automating or replying to an email for which we got a negative feedback or a review, right? So it's not every time we reply. So we expect our robot to reply. So we sometimes if we have an reply for the review that was raised by my customer, so my robot will go ahead and review. So it will see the database, it will see whether that issue has occurred before or not. If the issue has raised before, it will check whether the solution that is there in the system is solved or not. If it is solved, it will pick the solution and it will reply, hey, this is the solutions what we can provide. You can just try it. If not, if it's not solved, you can just reply us or get back to us anytime. So if this is a robot doesn't find any solution, right, then it can raise a ticket. And not every time, it's just not about raising a ticket and just not telling that it's a part of automation or we are automating that. So it helps in the other way also. It helps in the organization to understand what all areas we are getting more number of tickets, to understand how they can actually solve or work on that to resolve it. So it just doesn't give a scope for automation, but also gives a better idea to the organization or to the team where they should actually focus on and what sort of solutions they can provide to customer to give the best of the solution to the team or to the client. I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
Thank you, Sudhir, for that. Okay. So I would like to show you the studio, how it actually looks and how we can build the robots. I think you all can see the screen, right?
We see it very
confirm me
clearly.
if you can see my
We see it,
yeah.
Harika. It's looking great.
Okay. Okay. So basically, we have, this is how the studio looks like. So if you can see here, I have my community version here, and it is 21.4, which has been installed in my mission as of now. So let's start it up from creating the project. So you can see here, these are the different projects that are available here, and you can see, you can if you have already developed existing project, you can open it from here. And if you have it from any of your version control systems, you can just clone it from here. And if you wanted to create any process, that you can go ahead and start it from here. So let's touch up the basics from right in this session. So let's say as someone has already asked in the previous chat, how to go with QA part, right? So you can also have the test automation, so wherein you can go ahead and create the test projects here. So that will also be available. We have different certain other activities specially designed for testing, so you can go ahead and check that part in test automation as well. But to keep it more basic, I just wanted to show you how we can create a project as a part of this session. So let's say if I create the process, this is the place where you can go ahead and give the name of the project. So as I've already created one here, which shows MKAI workshop. So that's my project name for this session. And you can see there are multiple panels that are available here, right? So you can have the project panel, activities and snippets. So home is the place where I have just showed you right before. And then we have the design panel and the debug panel. So design panel is the place where we can create the sequences and flowcharts and all this information. We can save it as a template as well, so that we can use it. Let's say if multiple people are working in a same project, so instead of doing the same things again and again, you can create a template and you can use it within the project. And you know, right, the debug is a process, is one part wherein every developer has to be aware of, because if something goes wrong, debug is a place where we will pitch in and get the information about what's actually happening. So we have a separate panel for debugging also. So when we are going through the demo, I would show what actually we use in order to debug, to make things more clear for you. And then we have the packages. So this is the place where we have the packages from the UiPath. So few packages will already be there that we can check in from the dependencies that we have here. So these packages will help us to get the activities. So basically an activity is something like, I can show you here. So if you see, we have multiple activities that are available. So whenever we pull in some activity, that will help you to to do the certain task. So you don't have to really write a lot of code which is already developed. You just have to go in and just pull in the activity and do the certain task. So all you have to do here is just understand what does that activity does actually. So let's say write range. Just wanted to make things clear. So you just can see this is one activity. So this is basically used to write the data into the Excel sheet. So let's say to understand what is the input and output of this particular activity, I have something called as properties. So you can see the properties panel also to the right side. So it shows error here. I will explain you shortly what this error is also. So this activity has the information, like it accepts the input data table, and it will help you to add headers also. These are the properties I can say. Let's say if any one of you are from the coding background, you can say like we have arguments and the parameters and the return type, all this information, right? So this is already one such logic which is already built in inside this particular activity. And what you have to do is just understand it in order to provide the input and to retrieve the output and make use of it. So here it is saying you have to keep it inside that Excel application scope. All you have to do is just pull in the Excel application scope and just drop it over here, and then you can see that particular issue is resolved. But then it shows you have to provide the input argument. So that's how it will help you to make your workflow based on the errors. You can just put in the information and then you can resolve the errors. So that's how it actually does. So basically an activity is something which is already pre-developed. All you have to do is just drop the activity into your workflow and make sure what is the input. You provide the input, and when the output is provided, just we have to make sure how to utilize it based on our requirement. So let me show you the other part. So that's how, that's about the activities. So here we have multiple activities that are already there. So you can see the mail related activities. As I've we can see there are a lot of Outlook activities and SMTP activities. So this will help you to send the mail, receive the mail, to read the mails, and also if the mail has any attachments, you can also download the attachments. You can save the attachments, and all this different works can be done by using this particular activities which are already there. And later, if you can see, we are mostly concentrating on UI automation for today. So we have attach browser, open browser, refresh browser. So these are the multiple activities that we have in order to perform actions on browser. So based on your requirement, we can pull in that particular activity into your workflow. Just understand the properties and then, make sure that it works as required. So later in, when we pitch in through multiple examples, we can understand about it more clear. But on high level, this is something about activities. And later, you can also see we have different types of recordings. Let's say if you don't want it to pull in the activities, you just have to go ahead and do the recording. That would exactly build in the replica of what automation actually does. So that's how you can do recording as well. And we will be talking in detail about data scraping in today's session. That is where we can extract the information from the web application. So wherein we also see what is UI Explorer, because this is the, I can say, heart of any automation, because this is the place where we do the selectors. So if you don't have any idea about selectors, it's completely fine. We will see going forward what is a selector is and how we can modify the selector based on our requirement. And then once the project is developed, this is the place where we go ahead and publish the project, and that's where that will be available for everyone. And later, coming to the debugging part, as I've mentioned you, once after we develop the demo, I would show how we can debug if something goes wrong, how we can check in by using the breakpoint and slow step. Slow step is basically used to slow the process so that we can see what actually process is going through in each step slowly. So, and also we can highlight the elements whenever the process is happening, it will highlight the elements in the browser. And coming to variables, arguments, and imports, we will see what are these different things are and how we can use them in the demo. So as a part of this demo, I just wanted to showcase in two different websites. So the first one, what I have chosen is Flipkart. So let's say I'm in flipkart.com. So in this, if let's say I wanted to extract a part of information from this website. So I have come into this website, and let's say if I wanted to make sure if I'm in the login page or not. So let's see how I can verify that part.
Harika, I think you have to share the other window as well. We can just see.
Okay, let me share the whole screen. Okay. Okay. I was just mentioning that. Let's say I'm in the flipkart.com, and if I wanted to make sure that if I'm in the login page or not, I just wanted to make sure by checking this particular information on this button. So let's see how I can extract the information to make sure that I'm on this page. This is a small demo part that I wanted to show so that we can see how we can extract a small piece of information by using UiPath. So let me just show you this, how we can create a sequence. So if you go to the design panel, we have something called as new. And if you just click here, we have sequence, flowchart, and state machine. So global handler is something different. But if you're developing the sequences, workflows, we have to concentrate on these three things, which is sequence. Based on the complexity of the project, we prefer either sequence, flowchart, or state machine. So I am taking sequence in this example right now. So just click on the sequence and you can name it. So I have taken as a demo sequence, but I can create one for you right now. So you can just mention, and there we go. The sequence has been developed. So if you can see here, it is asking you to drop the activity here. So what I wanted to check here in this website is, first I have to go to this website, right? So for that, I have an activity called open browser. So I'm just going to drop this activity here, and then I have to give the URL here. And this URL is something which the website has. So I'm just hard coding the values for time being. And this will open up the website. But here, if you just observe in the properties, so we have something called as browser type. So if you don't select the browser type, we have all these browser types by default. So if you don't select anything, so by default, it will go and open up in the IE. So I'm going to open it in the Chrome. So make sure that you close all any previously opened windows that are there before you actually run the process. So I'm just clicking on run file, which will opens up the Flipkart page for me. So if you see, the Flipkart has been opened. And now I wanted to make sure that I'm in the login page or not. So how I would retrieve that information. So I have an activity called as get text. So I'm just pulling it into the do block. So do block is where once after you open the browser or after performing this action, if you wanted to do certain set of actions, so this is one of the sequence that we have inside which you can put in your activities that you wanted to perform. So let's say I wanted to extract the text from that particular browser. So if you see, we have indicate element inside browser. So just have to click on it. So now I wanted to highlight it on the web page, but now by default my other UiPath Studio has been opened up. So in order to have some delay, I'm just clicking on F2. If you see here, we have a delay being involved. So 3 seconds. So that 3 seconds will help us to switch between the windows. So now after the delay, I can get this option to highlight. So if you see what are the elements are there in this particular website, I can highlight every one of them. So my interest now is to check if this is in the login page, wherein I will take this as the, I can say maybe the reference in order to check if it's in the login page. So I'll just click on this particular login. So if you see, this information has been captured. And what I have to do is, once after we capture the information, every time you have to edit the selector and make sure if this information is not dynamic. So what I actually meant by dynamic is, so I'm opening it in the, okay, I've clicked it on Open UI Explorer. So this is the UI Explorer wizard actually. If you see here, we have many things like visual tree, we have property explorer. This is the place where our selector editor is there. And you have, just like how we have HTML attributes and attribute values, all the information can be seen here. So these are the attributes and these are the values that are having here. So let's say if I have class being selected, and maybe this value would be varying all the time. This may not be constant. So you have to make sure whatever the selector value you are taking, that should be static all the time. And if there is any dynamic, we will see how we can make it more robust in order to not change with the any application changes. So we have something here called as validate. If I click on it, it would show you the green. That means this selector is valid. And you can also highlight. If you see, I have highlighted it in the whatever the text that we have taken, that is highlighted in the red. So that's how I am taking. And now, as I've used getText is basically used to extract the text of the information. So now I have to take the inner text. So this information will be extracted by using the getText. So I'm just validating, and this is validated, and I'm highlighting. It's shown in red. That means it's the correct selector, and I'm saving it. So again, the major basic thing is you have to go into properties. Now we have given the input, which is the selector. So this is the input, and now we have to retrieve the output into a variable. So this is where I was mentioning previously. The variable is something which will hold the actual information. So I wanted to declare a variable here. Let's say I have a shortcut called Control K. This will help you to declare a variable. So let's say I wanted to declare as login page. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to check what is the value inside this login page. So we have an activity called message box. I'm just pulling message box in here and wanted to print this login page over here. So basically this login page should contain the information as login. Then only we can mention that this particular application is in the login page. So my robot is in the login page. So I'm just going to run this workflow, before which I've closed the previously opened website. And so if you see here, we have the message box, which is displaying the login, right? So that's how I can extract the information. But let's say if you wanted to get any other attribute value apart from text. So we have an activity called get attribute. So if you take the same example, in this, let's say I'm indicating that element. I'm going to UI Explorer to check the other attribute values. So now, let's say I wanted to extract the login itself, but I wanted to get the ANAME attribute value. Let's say this attribute value, which is a ANAME. So I don't have to check in the inner text. I will just save it as it is. And here, if you just observe, we have the option to select multiple attributes. So you just have to select the drop down, and from here you can select ANAME, which will help you to get same information. I'm just copying and pasting the message box here. But as I've said before, the properties have to be set. So the result have to be saved here. Let's say ANAME value. So this also should show the login information. So let's close this. So this is the first login that I'm getting using getText. And this is the second login that I'm using, getting using the get attribute value. So now what I'm going to do here is, let's say this is a piece of information that I'm extracting. So now if you wanted to extract like a tabular information or the structured data, in that case, as I've mentioned earlier, you can use data scraping. So let's see how we can do that part. So I'm just, let me just copy this or build a new sequence. Let's say I'm saying data scraping. This is the new sequence. So for this, what I'm going to do actually here is, once after I come into this page, I just wanted to type in laptop. And here, if you see, we have 724 results, right? So my interest is I wanted to extract the name of the laptop along with the price. Let's say I wanted to take the rating as well. So in such case, how we will extract? So the major thing that you have to concentrate here is you have to make sure the data here follows a similar pattern. So we call it as a structured data. So if you see, all the data here has the same pattern, the names and the rating and the price, everything has a certain pattern. And after you scroll down, you can see at the end of the page, we have multiple pages, right? So we have 31 pages in total. So now let's see how my robot can extract whole information within no time. I can say less than a minute. I can extract 724 results by using the data scraping. So for which I have to, first thing for developing any automation is we have to replicate the manual steps. So first I'm opening this website, which is Flipkart. So I'm using the open browser, which is the same one. So just pull in the open browser and check this. And make sure it opens in a required browser type. And after that, I wanted to type in laptop into this particular text box. So now how we can type in the values into the text box by using UiPath. So we have an activity called type into. So this is a keyboard activity. So just pull in that type into activity, and you have to indicate inside the browser where we actually have to type that value. So I wanted to type it over here. So before we actually proceed, we have to make sure that the editor selector is correct or not. So for which I am going into UI Explorer, and I'm making sure that the tag is input. And let's say if you highlight it, it is highlighting exactly the same. So I'm just saving it. And now here I wanted to type laptop. So for this, if you see, there is, we don't have to mention any, we don't have any output type. We are not getting anything in return. So I'm just going ahead and trying to replicate the same thing using automation. So let's run this and see if we could able to proceed till this step. So if you see, every time whenever I open the browser, it is opening in the minimized mode. So what I'm going to do here is just add in one activity, which is called as maximize window. So this will help you to maximize the window whenever it's open in a small window. So let's say after I type in the laptop, I'm hitting an enter, right? So this action also has to be taken care of. So for this, we have a hotkey, which I am going to enter here. So this would do the purpose, but before to which I am enabling the property, which is send Windows message. And you can see there are multiple options. We have empty field also. Let's say if you wanted to enter multiple times, or if the text is already there before you enter. So you just have to empty it, empty the fields, and then you can type in the value. So that's how you can use the different options that we have in the properties panel. So once after you do that, it would enter the laptop and click on enter. So that would generate you the results. So let's see till that part. It has maximized the browser. Okay. So now we are seeing there is an invalid key action. So let's say this, we can, I think this is with respect to the hotkey. Let me just debug this and check, before to which I would close this. So if you just see here, we have this particular laptop that's been entered, and I wanted to click on enter here. So you have two options here. You can either do that part, or you can also send the hotkey. So let me just show you the other action that we can do. Let me just take the exact hotkey. So this is the exact hotkey that you can send. So if you see here, we could see there the result has been popped up, and now the next part is we have to extract this particular information. So for which I have mentioned, I will be using the data scraping. So let's say I wanted to extract the name of the laptop. So first I have to select the value. Let's say the name of the laptop. And as I've mentioned you here, it will follow certain pattern. So I wanted to select the next, I can say element, which is of similar pattern. So I'm going to select the second laptop's name. And here you can give the name of the particular column that you wanted to extract from. So let's say this is the name of laptop. And if there is any URL corresponding to this particular laptop, then that URL also you can extract. Let's say URL. Let me show you the preview of how this actually looks. You can see here, this is the preview. You can extract all the names of the laptops along with, this is the URL that is associated with the laptop. So this will help you to reach out to this particular page and gives the information in more detail. So let's say after I extract the name, if I wanted to get the price of the laptop as well, so I have an option here to extract correlated data, right? So what I can do is I have to extract, select the first element and also the second element, and also make sure that you follow the pattern, because this activity, which is the data scraping, is designed in such a way that all the elements would be extracted based on a pattern. So I'm going to extract price of laptop, and you can see the preview over here. And let's say I wanted to take the rating as well, and next. So whatever the column names that you give here, that would be extracted as it is into your Excel. So that's all. We are done. We have extracted the name, URL, along with price and rating. So I'm just going ahead and clicking on finish. It's also asking if you wanted to extract the information from multiple pages. So yeah, I'm interested in extracting from multiple pages. So in order to go to next page, I wanted to make sure that it clicks on the next button. So I would say yes, because I'm interested in getting information from multiple pages, and click on next. So that would be considered as a reference for going to the next page. So once after I'm done with it, this is how the activities are generated. So if you just see into the properties panel. So as I've mentioned here, we have an output, which is a data table, and the variable that the information is stored into is extract data table. So now what I'm going to do, just pull this into the do block, as I said, and And now once this is done, we have the information into our data table. So let me just put a message box mentioning that this activity is done. Just pulling it out of the data scraping, and it shows end. So this is the static text I'm mentioning here. So after the scraping, it shows it's finished. But to see the data that we have scraped, we have to pull the information into an Excel. So before to that, I would show how the information actually looks.
Manish has just asked, is it possible to scrape data with a login ID and password? Would that be the same or different?
Yes. We have to mention the login ID and password. Just by how I have mentioned here, like type into, we have to type into the username and the password, and then the rest, all steps would be the same. And
second level authentication on a phone or an email or something, that would be a little harder, would it?
In that case, we can go for attended automation, wherein, let's say if you have with respect to email or something, then we can do that. We can scrape the information and we can mention that into our authentication factor. But in case if it's not possible, then we have an option called attended automation, wherein a human can pitch in for that particular task, and then the rest would be done by robot.
And maybe a silly question, but what about that screen that says, you know, prove you're not a robot? Sometimes it's a tick box. Sometimes you have to look at traffic lights on a street. What happens then?
Yes. We have activities for CAPTCHA, but not completely can be automated, but a part of it can be automated. That's completely based on the requirement. We have to see which can be automated and wherein the human action will be needed. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's okay. And okay, let's go ahead with this. And now I have closed the previously opened application and I'm moving it in the debug mode to show you the data table that we have extracted. So for which I have kept a breakpoint here. And let me just run this. So as I've kept a breakpoint here, it is asking for me to click on the step into. As I've mentioned, the debugging is a process where we can check if there are any issues. Then let's say if I click on step into, it would go ahead and click on perform this action. So I'm saying step into. So if you see, the process is running and it has come to the next step. So I can go ahead into the locals panel. So these are the variables that we have when the process is running. So if you see the extract data table, I'm showing you in the properties panel, this is the output variable, right? Extract data table. So this variable contains the information that we are extracting. So you can see the information over here. Just expanding it. So you can see name of the laptop, URL and price, everything. The information has been extracted and is shown up here. So if you see in the first page, the information from the first page has been extracted. And once after I click on continue, it will go into the second page. And if you see, we have gone only till page number 5, right? But we have few more pages, but if you can see, the process has been ended. This is because if you just observe here, in this particular properties, we have an option called maximum number of results. So if I put it in here as 100, only we can extract 100 results at a time. But here I have 700 plus records that needs to be extracted. So in that case, the number has to be changed. But this number keeps on varying for different application and different types of data that we enter here. So in order to make sure and to make it more dynamic, you have to make it 0 so that it is not really bothered about what's the amount of the data that we are extracting by using this. So that's one thing I just wanted to mention here. So now if you execute this process, it would go till end of the page, like 31 pages, and it will extract all the results. So once after we extract the results, I wanted to get it into an let's say Excel. So I wanted to use right range activity. So let me just pull in the right range activity here. So we have two types of right range. This is an Excel application right range, but I wanted to take it from workbook so that I don't have to use the Excel application scope. So here I'm using the right range. So as I said, we have to go to properties and make sure what is the input. It is asking for a data table. So I wanted to take it from extract data table. But if you see, I'm not able to get this variable, which is extract data table, in when I'm going to write it here, because you can see the variables panel. There's a scope, right? Inside the scope, we have something called as data scraping. So here, if you observe, it is only inside the data scraping scope. So what I'm going to do in order to use it outside as well, I'm going to put it under complete data scraping, which is, okay, maybe this would be confusing to you. This is the data scraping activity, but I wanted to make it under data scraping sequence. So I wanted to keep it under data scraping sequence so that I can use it outside the sequence as well. So now if I go ahead and see, I will have the variable which is extract data table, and you can just simply take off this range because it's a constraint wherein you have to add the information only in that particular range. And now this is the output path where you wanted to save this into. Let's say I wanted to save it under laptop.xlsx because this is an Excel. We are writing it into an Excel. So that's where my information will be saved it into. And then I am displaying an end card. So just going and closing it. Just run the process again. So if you see, it's been traversing the pages. So in the previous example, it has stopped at the 97th result, but now it's traveling till the end. So if you see the speed also, it's really very quick, which is if a human has to extract the same information, it would definitely take a lot longer time. But here it's been done very quickly. So we are done and we've come till the last page. And here robot cannot see the next button. So that's where it will understand we have reached the end of the page, and then it would stop the process. So if you see this icon, that means the process is still running. That means the robot is still checking if it is in the last page or not. So this is a validation that it is taking before it actually ends the process. So it is still running, the process is still running.
Quick question from Siddharth then. He says, can we integrate an ML model with UiPath? So once I scrape data and extract it into a CSV, I can also do the prediction part in a go, it says. Yeah, we could scrape it into a CSV file. I mean, that'd be fine, wouldn't it?
And post that we can actually...
we can do that into CSV.
Yeah, we can actually feed it to a Python model or to any other model that is already built on UiPath or on a custom Python model and just get the desired output. That's actually doable.
Thanks very much.
Okay. Yeah. So now we can see that it's been ended, right? So now what I'm going to show you here is the output that we've extracted, which is into laptop.xlsx. And if you see here, we have all the information that we've extracted. And the information shows 717 rows, which been extracted from using this application. And also, you see, this doesn't carry any headers. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just enabling this option, which is add headers. That will help us to add in the column names, which we have created while we are extracting or using the data scraping. We have created some column names. So that names will also be given. And now if you see, I would show you a small trick here. So it shows 2 minutes, right? So when the robot goes to the last page, it will actually take some time in order to make sure that it is not the last page, right? So in that case, what we are actually doing here is, once after we're done, here we have something called as timeout. So if you don't give any timeout, by default, it will take 30 seconds to make sure that it is in the last page. So what I'm going to do, I'll reduce the time to 5 seconds instead of 30 seconds, and we can see the difference when we are actually running it through the workflow. So, and also I am deleting this. Okay, it's been used. Let me just close it. And let's see the copy which we get after this run. So whatever the timeout I have provided, that will apply in the last page when the bot doesn't find the next button. So there we can see the difference, which will reduce the execution time. So I believe this is the last page and it shows the end. And let me just show you the time of execution. Previously it was 2 minutes. And now you can see it has reduced to a minute, right? So that's how, and also I have added the headers. Let me just refresh this and we can see the headers have been added. So the name of laptop, URL of laptop, these are the headers that I've given when I am creating the structure by using the data scraping. So you can see the rating as well. So you can see the information in this page is 744. Maybe I think there's a mismatch in the number, but it is showing 742, where exactly I believe all the information has been extracted because I could see everything here on this page. And now this is how you can scrape whole information from a website in just a minute, right? So that's really so cool that if anyone wants to get or scrape the data from any page which is in the structured or unstructured, we can get the thing done just by developing the workflow. So you can see this is nothing something that no one can understand or something like that, right? So it's just that you have the activities that are already built, and all you have to do is just pull in the activities into the workflow and then check into the properties and see what does this activity require, what input you have to provide, and what's the output that it provides you back with. So how you can use it in order to process the data. So that's how you can do this particular automation. So I believe everyone is clear with this, and I hope this will be helpful if you wanted to scrape any data by your own. And then I could see we still have 13 minutes. Maybe I can go ahead with, let's say, RPA challenge. Let me just introduce to this website. So this is a page where we have RPA challenge. Let's say if I enter here my first name, let's say Harika, and then my last name, DIA, and UiPath, and then I click on submit, and then after I click on submit, you could see the information whatever I've entered here, let's say first name will not be exactly in the same position. So let's say I clicked on submit, and then you can see the first name has come up here, last name has gone here, and the company name has gone here. So let's suppose you wanted to enter the information from an Excel. There's a bulk amount of information that you wanted to Excel transfer into a website. But if the UI of the page is keep on changing continuously, then in that case, how you would perform this action dynamically, how you can build a process that can, be smart enough to understand the positions of the label, and then it will enter the data into it. So this is one of the challenge that we can solve on now. So let's build a workflow around it. So for which I will take a sequence and name it as RPA challenge. And as usual, as I mentioned, you just go and pull out the open browser. And here I have to mention, this is my website name. And then just giving that information, and in the properties, change it to Chrome. And that's all. Now we are done with opening the application. And then I wanted to maximize the browser to make sure if it's not, no information can be hidden. And once after I maximize it, so I wanted to type in the first name. So as I've mentioned, you have to use the type into activity. So just pull in the type into, and you can indicate the element. So here, let's say my first name is Harika, and then I'm just editing the selector, going to UI Explorer. Okay. So if you just observe here, it just shows the tag as input. And then there's no other attribute that specifically mentions that it is of type first name, right? So if I just highlight it, it will show. But if I just submit and then highlight, if you see, whatever the first element is there, it's highlighting on it. So it comes the last name. But my interest is to type in the first name. It shows the company name, right? So this is not a perfect selector. So now I have to pitch in order to make this selector robust. So for which we have an concept called anchor. So we can see here a feature which is indicate anchor. So basically it will tie the selector with the relative element. So what I'm going to do, my first name should be close to this label, which is first name. So this is my label, which is constant all the time. So once after I click on indicate anchor, it will go ahead and it will tie it up with this particular first name label, right? So once after I'm done with it, I'm just validating it, and then I'll highlight this particular, just put it as 1. I'll just explain you why I've mentioned it as 1. And I think I've opened 2 UI Explorers. Sorry for that. Let me just go with 1. I will select, let's say, company name. And I would indicate the anchor with company name, which is company name label. And then it is retrieving the element. Okay, I could say this shows only label, but I wanted it as a company name, right? So let me just indicate it again. Okay, so here inside the label, we're not getting the exact tag, which has to be company name. So let me see if there is any issue. Okay. Okay, we have the company name label over here. So I'm opening in the UI Explorer. So let me just go with first name. And then I would indicate the anchor. Okay, so it has to be, the first name has to be the unique AA name that I am looking for, and the tag is label for it. And it is, the navigation is something which shows, it's just that one level above the first name, right? So we are mentioning that our selector, which is the input, is one level above this particular first name tag. So, and also I can see here the ID. So ID is an attribute which I can see here, which is changing constantly. As I mentioned, this is a dynamic attribute. So I don't wanted to put it under my selector to make it robust. So I'm just validating it. And then you can see, just as I haven't clicked on edit selector, even if I click on save, this, okay, the values have been saved here properly. So what I'm going to do here is just highlight this particular. So once after you click on submit, then next, if you just highlight it, it has to come under the first name, right? So we can see the changes have been replicated. So whenever it clicks on submit, I mean the position, even though if the position of the first name gets changed, so in this page, it has to come here exactly. So let me just highlight that element. So if you see, it is getting highlighted exactly, which is different in first case, where it was highlighting only the first element when we keep only the tag as input, right? So that's how you have to make this selector more robust with respect to the anchor. So now if I go ahead and type into the values of different pages after clicking on submit, the values will be going into the exactly the same fields. So what I'm going to do is I'll click on submit once after I type in the first name. So to do the submit, I'm clicking on the submit, and every time make sure the selector is robust and it is indicating exactly on the particular element. Because dynamic elements in the long run, they would fail and the automation will be broken. So that's why you have to make sure once after you select that the or whatever the selectors you're taking that are robust. And then let's just take a small do while to show you the activity here. So I'm just pulling it inside this and also this inside it. This is just a small logic I'm building around to show you. So let's say I'm taking an assign activity before the do while, and I'm taking one counter. And this counter is of variable type integer. I can change the value here. I'm changing it to integer and putting it as 1 in the first run. And once after every time it gets click on submitted, I want it to increment it. So what I'm going to do, I'll just increment the value. So I have the counter value and I'm incrementing after every submission. And I wanted to run this loop until the counter becomes less than 3. So that we can make sure that it enters into the multiple pages. So I just put a breakpoint here so that we can monitor the process and it's under our control. So let's debug this process. We can also see the variable values every time in the locals panel. So first time it has to type in my name here in this third box. So it has done and it clicked on submit and it is waiting for my action, my response. So if you see the counter value is 1 and once after I click on this, it will be incremented to 2. So you can see the value has changed to 2 here. And now it will check for the condition and it will go ahead and do the next one. So in this case, the first name has changed to here. So it has to enter here. So I'm clicking on continue. So if you see the name has to be entered and then it clicked on submitted. And if you see the counter value has to be incremented to 3 again. So you can see the value over here. And now as per the rule, it has to come out of the loop because the value is not less than 3, it's equals to 3, right? So that's how I can increment this value and you can run the process for multiple data. Even though when the page is getting changed dynamically, we can enter in the values by using the labels and anchors, which will tie the selector to the label, which is constant all the time. So that's how if there is, let's say, thousands of the rows of information of a particular user, then that information can be easily typed into these particular text boxes by using this anchor-based concept. So this is one such way by which we can use by tying it into the anchor. But we also have some other activities also which by which we can do. But let's starting from the basics. So this is one such way that I wanted to introduce you with. So I could see there are many chats, questions in the chat, and yeah, so there, thanks for answering the questions. Okay, Manish Kumar is asking about what about unstructured data scraping. So basically, Manish, we are using the data scraping for only structured data. Let's say if you have unstructured data that you wanted to extract, you can build a logic around it. We have the activities like get text, get attribute, and you based on the information that you wanted to extract, you can build a logic around it and you can extract the data.
So I just want to add on to that, Harika. So basically,
yeah.
There are 3 types of data. So structured, semi-structured, and unstructured. Structured is something which comes in a tabular format, which is of known. Okay, so that can be easily extracted using our data scraping option. Whereas the semi-structured is a data that follows a specific pattern, like what we have seen. The data that is getting populated on Flipkart or Amazon. So for a search, we would get the heads. Like if I go for a Nokia mobile or Samsung mobile, I would get the results. So everything follows a pattern, correct, in the search result. So that sort of pattern, we call it as a semi-structured. Well, you have seen that in our example, like how we have extracted the data of the products that we have searched for. So that is also possible using UiPath with less coding. Whereas with the unstructured data, so unstructured data is something like a free text, like your email. From the email, if you want to extract some specific keywords like your account number or some the name from the signature or something. So all that comes under the unstructured. So for the unstructured also, if we have any specific rules, like if I want to extract the account number, right, be it anywhere in the text, but it should follow some specific standards, like it should have a 10-digit number with alphabets, with 3 alphabets in the starting and followed by 7 digits. So if we have any such specific rules, then it could be easily extracted by our robots. But if we don't have any specific rules defined, then it would be a challenge for any model to understand or to extract that information. Be it if you build a Python model also, so as you have not defined a specific rule for extraction, then your model would also fail. So likewise, while coming to UiPath or any other tool, we need to be specific, like how we expect the data to come. So if we provide such information to any unstructured data also, we can extract it.